Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to oppose the Republican Omnibus Budget bill before us. See, it took the House and Senate Republicans on the Conference Committee all of one day to come to an agreement on this, but I am not so easily swayed. Actually, the fact that the House and Senate Republicans endorsed the school funding proposal is enough to raise suspicion in my book. They say two wrongs don't make a right, but with this budget, it looks like two majorities from the right can make a wrong. For starters, this bill does nothing to counteract the unprecedented $2 billion that's been slashed from our public schools under Governor Snyder and legislative Republican majorities in the last 3 years. Money that was used for corporate tax breaks. As much as you try, you cannot govern in a vacuum, and you can't ignore your previous indiscretions just because they were in a different fiscal year. Students, parents, and teachers are still feeling the pain, and this budget before us offers no real relief. We've seen schools from around the state, from Buena Vista Township to Albion to Ann Arbor, who are struggling to survive after the budgetary bloodbath they've already endured under the Snyder regime. And this year is no different, whether you want to admit it or not. This budget also continues the same obstinate and insistent theft of money from our school aid fund, funds that are supposed to aid our public schools. Now are taken from our kids to pay for community college and higher education budgets to the tune of $400 million a year. Your continued efforts year after year to exploit the school aid fund to fill other budget holes goes against the will of the people and jeopardizes the integrity of the democratic process. Now, my Republican colleagues also continue to insist on making the budget for higher education funding a Christmas tree for social conservatism, sneaking language into this bill that attacks universities that are leading groundbreaking stem cell research, universities that are at the forefront of offering domestic partner benefits, and seeking to lead by example in requiring that all university employees, including counselors, treat all students equally, regardless of their sexuality or any other distinguishing feature. Also in this budget, new language is included allowing students grade 5 through 12 to enroll in up to 2 online courses per semester with the consent of their parents. But the provider is paid 80% upon that student's enrollment and 20% upon completion. The district determines whether the school gets credit, the student gets credit for the class, but the provider, they get paid either way, regardless of whether or not the child has learned anything. This is just the latest instance of Republicans pushing to turn our students over to unproven technologies and for-profit entities who have no vested interest in a student's success. While we're only being given a glimpse of this in this particular budget bill, the news headlines lately have painted a much broader picture. Simply put, Governor Snyder and legislative Republicans are trying to turn public education into a private enterprise. At every turn, Republicans are attacking our brick-and-mortar schools and our flesh and blood educators. Republicans are more comfortable entrusting our kids to a computer than a teacher. And Republicans want to put schools in the hands of a corporate CEO instead of a superintendent. Let's look at the facts here. Over the last few months, we've seen a secret work group, including Snyder advisors, intentionally plotting the demise of Michigan's public schools. And we've even seen Snyder's chief of staff reveling in it. We've had Snyder's pet project, the EAA, borrowing $12 million from Detroit Public Schools, one of the state's most financially strapped school districts that the EAA was supposed to be protecting. And we even have the EAA blatantly disregarding the law and willfully deceiving the federal government on a grant application. All of this is true. We just weren't supposed to know about it. These backroom dealings and ethically and even legally questionable behavior have come to light through no admission of Governor Snyder, but because of the Freedom of Information Act and good, hard-nosed reporting. For all we know, the governor's streak of bad PR could be the only thing actually protecting our public schools right now. As we prepare to take this vote on the education budget bill, I want to implore my Republican colleagues to think long and hard about what you're about to do. You may have less trepidation about supporting this budget and its theft of $400 million from our K-12 schools, since you already did it last year. But that doesn't make it any more acceptable. Every year you continue down the path of apathy and acquiescence regarding inadequately funding our school kids, the more natural and normal it feels. The more hardened and heartless you've become, and the more numb. As you head up to Mackinac Island to collect handshakes and backslaps from your corporate cronies and wealthy special interests for this budget, don't forget you're selling out our kids, as well as yourselves. Because regardless of what your leadership has told you or what you're trying to tell yourselves, when you vote for this budget, you're going to vote against our schools, against our teachers, and most importantly, against our kids' welfare. I urge you to break this vicious cycle and stand up for our schools by voting this budget down, and I ask that my remarks be printed in the Journal.